The episode starts with Sid expressing his thoughts. He believes that when emotions invoke personal conflicts, it's best to avoid addressing them until the threat has passed itself. However, it seems that this theory only works for Sid himself, as his sister Claire clearly hasn't had enough time to let bygones be bygones. Hence, we see her on top of Sid, letting out her anger and frustration. She tells him that as she was waiting for her dear brother, she imagined beating him to a bloody pulp over again and again. And the more she waited, the more her rage increased. Jeez, man, I would not like to have a sister like that. Or would I? Anyways, so Sid for the first time realizes that sometimes if anger is left untampered, it increases instead. In anger, Claire begins to strangle Sid and threatens him by asking him if he'd like to experiment with how a human feels when passed out. However, Sid on the other hand couldn't care less and begins giving her an explanation about how it's due to the carotid artery being blocked that the person becomes unconscious. Claire, on the other hand, is more concerned about her younger brother breaking his promise to visit their home in the summer holidays. Once again, unfazed, Sid tells her that he'll try to be a man who keeps his promise. In exchange for letting Sid off, Claire gives Sid the tickets to the Bushin festival so that he can come and watch her fight. Curious, Sid asks Claire, wasn't she going to sit this one out? However, Claire tells him that she's the representative of the academy in the place of Princess Rose, and immediately asks Sid if he knew that or not. And then she proceeds to advise Sid to pay attention to his elder sister, if he wants to live a long and healthy life. Now, fast forward to the day of the festival. Alexia enters her sister's office, where she's informed that she moved out because some work needed to be done. However, a document is left behind regarding the Oriana Kingdom's principal enterprises, but Alexia tells herself that she stopped pitying it and no longer requires her pity either. Now at the festival, Sid enters the super VIP seating area, where he ends up meeting with Princess Iris. She asks who Sid is, and after Sid gives her a brief introduction, she asks if it's Claire's brother. Sid is also surprised to know that the princess is already aware of who Claire is. She further goes on to tell him that she met with Claire when she came to observe the knights. And after her time in the academy comes to an end, she plans on asking her to join her order. After that, she asks Sid to take a seat and apologizes for all the trouble she caused him during the Zenon Griffith incident. After that, she proceeds to tell Sid that the matter between the Marquets and the royal family has been settled. However, she still wanted to apologize on behalf of Claire. As her older sister, Sid immediately panics since his plan of keeping a low profile isn't going well because someone like the princess is apologizing to him. The princess then asks Sid to keep his friendship strong with Claire. However, Sid's a little confused as to what friendship is, since all he did was pick up the coins that she tossed him sort of like a dog. Claire still doesn't understand what she means, so she asks if they were playing fetch and with the dog. Sid then explains to her that more like he was the dog. Seems like Denji and Sid share the same fantasies. Anyways, Iris then tells Sid that Alexia is happy to have made such a good friend. However, Sid is not very sure if they are friends. Putting that aside, Sid asks if there are any interesting competitors this year. So Princess Iris tells him that it is none other than Anirose, the former member of the Velgada's Seven Blades. That is because it's her first time participating. Furthermore, some of her matches have been really interesting. One of the members sitting beside Iris also agreed to her opinion and wonders if she can beat Anirose. However, the princess's male supporter is sure that the princess will be a champion. If she can be champion, perhaps she could give the royal Bushin method the glory it deserves. However, the female beside Iris interrupts him and asks him not to put pressure on Iris. However, Iris is not the kind of weak girl, and she knows that the reputation of the royal Bushin and her family is her responsibility. After that, Sid once again asks if there are any other fighters worth watching besides Anirose. At first, one of Iris's friends mentions a strong student in the academy. The princess immediately tells her friends that it is actually Sid himself, and that he's Claire's younger brother. Diverting the attention back to the festival, Sid asks about the mundane man and how his fighting skills are. One of Iris's friends replies that he is freakishly fast, but that's about it since his swordsman skills are amateur. Hearing this, Sid immediately smiles and thanks himself that he set the right reputation for a mundane man. Princess Iris then further goes on to explain that Beatrix, the elf lady, who won the first Bushing festival, is also in town, and even though she's not participating, Iris is still on the lookout for what she's doing here since she hasn't shown her face in over a decade. Hearing Beatrix's name, Sid leaves the princess's company, and while he's walking through the halls, he crosses paths with Beatrix. She tells him that she came to the capital because she's trying to find another elf who looks exactly like her, and asks Sid if he has seen one too. However, Sid tells her that he is yet to have seen her again. Hence, after the brief meeting, the two exchange some food and go their separate ways. Meanwhile, Lord Purvashat sits in Sid's place and greets Princess Iris. Immediately, Princess Iris tells the Lord that it is someone else's seat, and that it is reserved for students. However, Asshat tells Iris that he's sure the students would learn something from him, being there about entertaining a princess or two. Iris asks Asshat to stop with the flattery, since he's already engaged and about to be married. However, Asshat tells Iris that they seem to be having a lover's quarrel, but he's sure that she'll be back with him. Iris then asks Asshat if he came alone, to which Asshat replies that yes, he indeed did. Since the king has fallen miserably ill, he further goes on to tell Iris that unfortunately the personnel she provided for the king's safety have proven to be unnecessary. However, Iris is not bothered by it, and is sure that King Klaus welcomes him tomorrow and attends the festival. As this conversation is going on, it seems as if the time for the awaited battle has arrived, since Anna Rose is fighting against Mundane Man. While looking on to Anna Rose, the two high authority personnel talk about how they would like a fencer of a high caliber as Anna Rose to join their kingdom's forces. Lord Asshat then goes on to say that isn't the Midgard kingdom already blessed with plenty of dark knights? On the other hand, his kingdom has rather weak dancing knights. However, Iris reminds him that this is why they formed an alliance, so if Lord Asshat's kingdom was ever in trouble, the Midgard kingdom could come to their rescue and dispel the darkness from their country. Now, focusing back on the match itself, Asshat asks Iris about what she thinks of Mundane Man because he seems too weak. Iris agrees to the fact that Mundane does look weak, however, he has something that no other fighters have, and that is absolute confidence. Hearing that, Lord Asshat ponders over Iris's words, and then his amusing personality tells her that he doesn't know much of the sword, since it is looked down upon in the Oriana Kingdom. However, he still does have some proficiency with swords. No reverting back to Iris's claims just as the match begins. Asshat says that's check what this absolute confidence is about. Right before the referee does the fight signal, Anna Rose thinks to herself that the secret of Mundane Man's overwhelming power is none other than his speed, and she's still not seen the full extent of it yet. However, his swordsmanship is still childish, so the best way to fight him is to not let him use his speed. As the fight starts, Anna Rose charges straight at Mundane Man and manages to strike him with his sword. However, soon she realizes that it wasn't Mundane Man himself, but rather his afterimage this whole time. Now standing at her blind spot, Mundane Man hits Anna Rose with a devastating hit, making her fly high into the sky. Jumping alongside her, then strikes Anna Rose once again, sending her down crashing into the earth. Anna Rose also realizes that if he had put into any magic into that strike, then she would have died. So understanding that she's been bested in speed and power, she decides to change strategies and waits for a counterattack, since she has no other option left, and as Mundane Man comes charging straight at him. She waits and waits until she finally tries to strike Mundane Man. However, she soon realizes that even though she thought she was matching her timing to his attack, it was actually Mundane Man who was doing so. And then in one beautiful strike, Mundane Man gives Anna Rose her first defeat. Seeing Mundane Man's performance, both Lord Asshat and Princess Iris are surprised. The princess wonders how a dark knight of his caliber has gone unnoticed for such a long time. In the meanwhile, Lord Asshat then questions Iris if she can beat Mundane Man. And in her usual confident demeanor, Iris tells Lord Asshat that she may not be able to beat him in the beauty of a swordsmanship display. However, duels are not won by that alone. And whatever secret power mundane man must be holding on to, she'll crush all of them to absolutely tiny pieces and come out as the winner. Because she hates to lose after all. After that, Princess Iris takes leave from Asshat's company, so she can prepare for her match. Asshat also leaves and asks one of his assistants to investigate Mundane Man, since he suspects him to be a resident of the underworld. Plus, if the lawless city is supporting him, then things can get out of hand really soon. Asshat's assistant implies that he may be with the Shadow Garden. However, Asshat is sure that it's not the case, since the Shadow Garden would want no part in the Bushin Festival. Now, as his assistant leaves to discover the truth about Mundane Man, Asshat wonders about his reality and is determined to uproot any weeds before they cause problems for the nations. In the meanwhile, as Mundane Man is walking through the halls, he is stopped by Anna Rose. She tells Mundane Man that she admits defeat and further goes on to explain that as time passed, she became stronger and stronger, and at one point got pretty confident in her abilities, to the extent that she saw no new skies to conquer. However, this duel with Mundane Man has shown her that she still has the potential to grow. Hearing this, Mundane Man tells Anna Rose that she has nothing to be ashamed of, and as he leaves, Anna Rose asks him just who he is. To answer that question, Mundane Man tells her that he's simply a guy who lost everything in the pursuit of strength and power. Just as he leaves, Anna Rose tells him that he can enlist for work in the government of Velgada if he changes his mind, and he should come to see her before he leaves. However, with a sad smile, Mundane Man simply tells Anna Rose that the world is too bright for him. Meanwhile, after one of her duels, Iris sees Beatrix and chases after her to have a chat. As she catches up to her, she introduces herself, and Beatrix in return offers her some food. Now, cutting back to our main character, Sid, we see him walking back home thinking to himself that his day was great since he got to show off his stylish sword skills that he wouldn't be able to show as a shadow, and was able to achieve about 70 to 80% of his goals at the Bushin Festival. Now all he has to do is end it the right way, and he could do that by beating Princess Iris and then disappearing like a true eminence in the shadow. However, Sid's day soon becomes hell as he meets Claire, who asks her brother if he's grinning a lot. Is that because he saw her match? Meanwhile, as the episode ends, we get a glimpse of Rose in a broken building where she's looking into a mirror and says the words, "Grant me." In the middle of the field, Princess Iris Midgar is preparing for her match with Mundane Man. With a powerful slash, she remembers her childhood and everything that she went through to get there. As a child, she was considered a prodigy, being able to spar and defeat dark knights while her little sister cheers her on. She joined and won a lot of contests, leaving her opponents destroyed in battle. She was the student council president and the pride of their sword style, the Royal Bushin method. The citizens are comforted in knowing that with Princess Iris on their side, Midgar will be safe. She finally became a dark knight, with the people cheering her on when she passes by. With another powerful slash, Iris remembers the moment she failed in the past. When her sister was kidnapped, Alpha just tells her to watch as Shadow Garden resolves the problem. When the school was taken over by terrorists, she couldn't even mount a rescue because the enemy was able to block her magic. When she tried to get permission from her father, the king, to investigate the bishop, she was rejected since she had no proof. Back in the present, Iris grits her teeth and promises to get results in her upcoming fight. While practicing her attack, she promises to prove that she has the power and that she will win. At the VIP section of the arena, Sid is happily drinking coffee. He is liking the luxurious life where he can ask the maids for pretty much everything and they'll bring it. Iris sits beside him again and greets Sid. Iris asks him if he's there to cheer for his sister again. Iris then notices that Sid is drinking coffee and comments that she likes the smell of coffee, but the bitter taste is not to her liking. Sid suggests that she can always just add a ton of milk and sugar and make the coffee milk. Intrigued by what she learned, Iris tries out this new technique and finds coffee milk very delicious. Meanwhile, Sid can't believe he's just casually having breakfast with a princess. In the distance, they hear a couple of guards apprehending and talking to a woman. They are trying to explain to the woman that her sword is not allowed. The other guests wonder if the woman somehow got lost or maybe she's a beggar. The guard asks her for her invitation, but Iris suddenly speaks up and tells them that she invited her. She welcomes Beatrix, the war goddess, and everyone is stunned to learn that the woman is the legendary elf swordmaster. Meanwhile, Cid is getting jealous that Beatrix has such awesome titles like legendary swordmaster. Iris and Beatrix sit down next to Cid, and a couple of nobles come closer to speak with them. The nobles mention that Beatrix seemingly doesn't like showing herself in public, and Beatrix tells them that she's just appeared because she's looking for someone. Meanwhile, Cid is peacefully sipping tea, enjoying the moment because he is the quintessential background character, sitting beside the named characters like the princess and the swordsmaster. However, his peaceful background persona was interrupted when the nobles ask Beatrix if she found someone strong in the tournament, and Beatrix mentions that she found Cid. Everyone puzzlingly looks at Cid, and another student tried to explain to Beatrix that he's just an average kid. He doesn't even compare to his sister, Claire Coganu. Meanwhile, Iris just supports Beatrix and tells the nobles that Cid must have a bright future ahead of him. Cid observes Beatrix and concludes that she definitely has what it takes to be a war goddess. Her looks, personality, title, and strength just seem to be perfectly natural and unembellished. No one can even sense how powerful she really is. Meanwhile, Beatrix is just happily eating a burger. Elsewhere, Perv Assad is feeding the king of Oriana his daily dose of drugs. The drug is proven to be effective, but Perv doesn't like how it's making the king smell sickeningly sweet. He tosses the drug to a guard and tells him to put perfume on the king. The drug has reduced the king to a puppet that can only do as Perv commands. However, Perv does not doubt that the king's daughter, Princess Rose, will come back to save her father. If Rose fails to appear later to rescue the king, Perv is planning to order Oriana's king himself to slay the king of Midgar. That would cause a war between the two kingdoms, and Oriana would likely be destroyed if faced against the militaristic Midgar. Perv's rank and status will disappear, but arrangements have already been in place to install a puppet leader as the next king of Midgar. Perv and Oriana's king then meet with Midgar's king and enter the VIP section of the arena. Perv is planning to take action during Princess Iris's match, however he is worried about Mundane Man. He already looked into the background but found nothing. He is sure that Mundane Man is a resident of the underworld, but he has no idea why he has come out into the limelight. Perv has developed the greatest number of soldiers possible around the arena, but now he's also worried about Shadow Garden since he has a hunch that they are now working with Rose. In the VIP arena, Perv Assad and Oriana's king pass by in front of Beatrix and Iris. Beatrix nonchalantly mentions that they somehow stink, so Perv berates her for insulting the king. He shouts at the guards to remove the woman, but Iris suddenly intervenes and tells him that the woman is Beatrix the war goddess. Perv is stunned and horrified at Iris's declaration. He realized that if she really is Beatrix, then that would mean she is one of the strongest people in there, and one of the few people that might have awakened the hero's blood within her body. Beatrix apologizes, but Perv tells her that he should be the one apologizing. He then continues walking with the king toward their seat. Perv wonders what Beatrix might be doing at the tournament of all places. He now has to look for an opportunity to eliminate her, since her powerful presence might derail his plans. Unfortunately, he has no idea how to do this, since Beatrix is probably even better with a sword than Princess Iris. Is his plan to assassinate Midgar's king at an end? He then assures himself that everything will be just fine. As long as Rose shows up, he just has to capture her and continue their operation. He notices a boy going to the bathroom, and he wished he was one of the masses with no problems. Meanwhile, at the center of the arena, Claire's duel is taking place. Perv acknowledges that Claire has some skill, but she still doesn't seem to be a threat to his plans. He wishes that if everyone just had Iris's skills, then his job would be so much easier. After the duel is over and Claire is announced the winner, Iris marches on toward her fight. The knights and nobles she passes by are all cheering her on, and she absorbs her cheers, making them her own strength. She focuses on the thought that every citizen feels safe thanks to her strength and presence. She enters the arena grounds, and right in front of her is Mundane Man. Without a doubt, she recognizes him as a powerful opponent. Even now, she can't sense his strength, but there's something unfathomable about him. However, Iris is confident she can beat him. She will finish the fight in one blow before Mundane can even get the chance to show his true strength. When the fight finally starts, Iris's head flies away, cut off immediately from her body. Her sight slowly darkens until everything is black. Outside the arena, Claire is running around looking for her foolish brother, who again didn't watch her fight. She passes by Rose, who is disguised in a coat with a guitar case on her back. Back at the arena grounds, Iris stumbles back, shocked. She touches her neck since she was sure that Mundane Man just decapitated her. However, he is just standing still. Mundane asks her why she's not attacking, and Iris realizes that she unconsciously backed away. She had instinctively sensed her death. She stands up and pulls out her sword. She decides to face her fears. She readies into a stance, but her foot instantly gets chopped off. But it was just a hallucination. Inside the arena building, Rose had almost reached the VIP seats, but she hadn't seen any guards. In one hallway, she sees the dead bodies of the Cult of Diabolo's members. On the other corner are tied-up nobles and servants. She instantly recognizes the handiwork of the Shadow Garden, who is now standing in front of her. Shadow Garden then prompts her to continue her mission. Rose removes her coat and pulls out her sword from the guitar case. At the arena grounds, Iris is reeling back from Mundane Man's pressure. Just from the minuscule movements of Mundane Man, she's already hallucinating that he struck her. She then hears the watching crowd slowly talking about why she seems to be staggering back and forth. Her head became full of the crowd's faces, losing hope in her. In anger, she shouts and summons her explosive mana. She charges at Mundane, ready to unleash her devastating downward slash. She then notices that Mundane Man hadn't even drawn his sword. She realizes that everything he did, from his graze to his slight movements, all was deliberately done to confuse her. She slashes at Mundane, but Mundane dodges and slaps her weapon away. He then slams his hand on her throat and brings her down. When she opens her eyes, Mundane already has his sword at her throat. Mundane then coolly tells her that they're just getting started. In the VIP room, everyone is stunned that Iris lost. Even Perv cannot believe that Iris Midgar was defeated before she could make a single move. Not even the strongest Dark Knight he knows would be capable of a stunt like that. Meanwhile, Beatrix is happily watching and wishing that she wants to fight Mundane Man herself. Perv's smile returns when he finally sees Rose make her entrance. Perv welcomes her and proceeds to show her the king. Rose kneels in front of her father and apologizes for everything she's done, and for what she's about to do. She has made mistakes, but as the princess of the Oriana Kingdom, she will follow the path that she believes in. The king then smiles and tells her that he forgives her of all her sins. Shocking Rose. Perv angrily yells at the king since he is acting on his own. However, Rose immediately dashes forward and attacks. Perv blocks himself using the king, and Rose stabs the king right in his heart. With his dying breath, the king tells Rose he loves her. Meanwhile, Perv is stunned that Rose just killed her father without a second thought. He almost yells at her for killing his puppet, but he suddenly sees Rose put her sword on her neck. Perv immediately orders his soldiers to stop Rose from committing suicide, but Mundane Man suddenly breaks into the VIP room and kills them all. Rose watches Mundane Man's swordplay, and she suddenly remembers the mysterious person that saved her in the past. Mundane Man then removes his disguise and shows himself to be Shadow all this time. He was about to start his monologue spiel when Rose suddenly interrupts him and calls her the stylish bandit slayer. Rose then happily tells him that from the moment she saw his fencing on that day, she was determined to follow the path of a fencer herself. In the past, Rose was kidnapped by a group of bandits, but the bandits are all killed by a masked individual who giddily massacres all of them. Unbeknownst to her, this was Sid on one of his bandit hunts training as a kid. The scene of the masked person killing all those bandits was etched into Rose's eyes. After killing all the bandits, the masked person nonchalantly advises her to go home. She tries asking him who he is, but the masked person just introduces himself as the stylish bandit slayer. Now, Rose finally realized that Shadow was the person who rescued her all those years ago. He was fighting evil all this time, while Rose just wanted to end her pain and almost committed suicide. Shadow, however, tells her that her fight isn't over yet. Rose looks at the body of her father and runs away. Perv tries to follow her, but Shadow just points his sword at him. Perv shouts for his reinforcements, but Shadow Garden already killed most of his troops around the arena. Fortunately for him, Beatrix wanted to fight Shadow and took this opportunity to do so. Shadow smiles at his strong opponent and meets her attack head-on. Perv then takes his chance to escape. Meanwhile, Shadow and Beatrix's fight is just ramping up.